Vicky Lowe, and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show, where I share insights and interviews that support women to combine their family, work and life in a more successful and sustainable way. You'll often hear me say that the worst relationship I have in my life is with time. I'm the kind of person who wants to do so much, but I'm often left feeling like there's just not enough time. So I'm always on the lookout for productivity hacks. How do I achieve more without working myself to the bone? How do I save time but still have a positive impact? If you're the same, then this episode is for you. Today, I'm talking sanity saving productivity hacks with my guest, Laura Parker. Laura has helped me save time in my business with some powerful productivity insights. She's literally revolutionising how I approach my work with some simple but powerful hacks. So I'm really excited to be having her on this show today and sharing her wisdom with you. Laura helps transform the businesses of overworked and overwhelmed female founders by helping them figure out a roadmap to make all of their dreams for their business doable. And Laura left a 15-year corporate career to carve out a different path as a business owner, living life on her own terms. She's a busy mum of two, and she loves reading, cocktails and yoga. She's my kind of girl. You can mostly find her hanging out on Instagram, so make sure you go over there and say hi after listening today. In this episode, Laura shares really how to do fewer things with greater impact, and how on becoming a mum and returning to work part-time, that sparked her really zone of genius and inspired her to take a leap of faith into an entrepreneurial journey. She talks about the 3 categories she uses on her to-do list to cut through the overwhelm. She shares some top productivity apps to save us time. And she also talks about how she manages an inbox zero, which is always my aspiration, and how she does that as a business owner and a busy working mum, and some top tips to cut through email overwhelm. She shares some of her daily rituals that support her with her organisation and productivity. And I love this because I'm always curious into other people's lives. She shares some behind the scenes on her life as a productivity and organisation queen. And I loved the surprising thing she shared with us that she does every day that actually makes her more focused and productive. And she's brilliantly put together a productivity hack download for us. So if you keep listening to the end, I talk about that in the episode, but you can head over to wisdom for FOR working mums mums.co.uk/41 to learn more about that. So let me welcome my guest, Laura. So welcome, Laura. I'm so excited that you joined me today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I wanted to start our conversation with your story, and I'd love for you to tell us about how you got started as an organisation and productivity ninja, if I can call you that, and what that journey's looked like for you.
Well, I think it's something that I've always had inside me. When I was a little girl, I used to go to my grandparents' house, and I think I'd drive them completely insane because I would tidy up their Tupperware cupboards and sort their videos out by in alphabetical order. So I've always been a bit like that. My friends have always called me Monica. I'm that annoying friend that, when we used to go on trips together, I would have a plastic wallet for everybody with their itinerary in. And, I've always been very, very organised, quite naturally. But it was really when I went back to work after my first child. So I went back to my corporate job, and I was the only person in the office who was working part-time. And I suddenly realised that a lot of the habits that I was using are actually proper strategies, which I've only really understood as I've delved deeper into the world of productivity. So I had so much to do in such a short amount of time. So very naturally, I was time blocking, I was having clear focus periods of work, and I was closing my email notifications so that I wouldn't get disturbed. So it was really then that I realised that actually I've sort of got a natural talent for, getting things done quite quickly.
I love that. And I love that you can track it back to when you were young, because I think there's so many things that we think come naturally to us that we just assume that everybody does, and often you can only join the dots looking backwards, kind of pick up the breadcrumbs.
Exactly. And actually it's funny because when we were younger, I was always, as I say, my friends have always joked and called me Monica, and I always used to kind of see it as a bit of a like, oh, I wish I wasn't like this. But actually, it's something that I'm quite proud of, but I'm able to help people now kind of be the same as me, and I love it.
Fantastic. And when you said you did this in your corporate job after your first child, what job were you doing then before you set up your own business?
So I was working in buying, and then I moved into supply chain. So it was quite, it sort of suited me quite well because it was a career that was creative, but also there was a lot of project management involved in order to kind of hit deadlines and things. So I think it played really well to my strengths, and that's why I've then kind of moved into that within my own business.
And so at what point did you set up your own business then?
So after I had my second child, I realised that it just wasn't going to work for me. The commute and the juggle, I just wanted to try and create a life where I had more control. And I also kind of I fancied to try my hand at being a business owner. It was something that I'd never really thought that I could be. And I'd had ideas for businesses in the past. I'd got so far as during my first maternity leave, I'd fleshed out a whole idea of something. I was going to have a cafe that was going to be for mums. So there's going to be lots of purees and a book corner, and so ideas, but I'd never actually taken the leap of faith in myself. And actually, after my second child, I just thought, do you know what, I'm going to do it. I think now's the time. So I started off with quite low aspirations, actually, of what I wanted to achieve and things. And it's just been amazing. And actually, I would say to anybody who was thinking about doing it, don't leave it as late as me. I really wish that I'd done it sooner, because I just wonder where I'd be now. So yeah, it's brilliant. I don't know how you feel, but it's the best thing that I ever did.
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing you say the idea for your business came when you were on your maternity leave. There's so many women that I speak to and I hear that story about how maternity leave often so many businesses are given birth to during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's because, I think you sort of realise that actually it's almost like pressing pause, isn't it, on that kind of hamster wheel of corporate life. And I think it's a time when we think, actually, could my skills be used to create a life for myself? So yeah, a lot of people I know, it's been born of that time. And a lot seems to have come out of lockdown as well. I was reading an article the other day and it was saying that so many women have started businesses during the last few months, which is amazing.
Yeah, incredible. And I think, many women will have felt forced into having to do that because of circumstances. But it's giving birth to their kind of creative entrepreneurship. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of you setting up Shoreway Business Services then, did you always know that was going to be the business, or was it a bit of trial and error? How did you decide to channel this organisation and productivity?
Yeah, so basically I started out, so I had an idea of a virtual assistant and I thought it was the best idea ever. And then I Googled it and I realised that actually there was a whole industry. So it was quite amusing because I actually thought I'd discovered, I'd thought of this new thing, and then actually there's a whole industry of millions of women who are doing this. So I went along that path and started off as a virtual assistant. And then I sort of realised that actually I sort of niched into the productivity and the organisation, and it's really just come from that. So, over the last 2-3 years or so, it's just evolved into something different. But obviously being a virtual assistant has, the skills of being organised and helping somebody else. The reason that I started was that I loved the idea of taking away somebody else's overwhelm, and actually making them feel clearer, and so that they can actually just focus on what they should be doing. And the idea of being the engine room behind somebody else's business was really, really powerful to me. So that was how it started. Yeah, so that was how it started, and then it's just kind of evolved from that, really.
And obviously I've mentioned in the introduction, but you're now helping me do that in my business and cutting through my overwhelm. So I really appreciate you coming on to share with my listeners some of the strategies, the tools, the tips that can help us all cut through overwhelm and kind of become kind of more productivity ninjas in our own life. And I really wanted to get to the heart of this because I know that my listeners are already high achieving women who are great at organisation. So, and most working mums have to be. But sometimes we can't see what we can't see. And I know that was the case when I started working with you. I would say that I'm quite efficient and quite productive naturally. But actually, the strategies that I was using to do that weren't necessarily the smartest. And sometimes, as you say, you have to take a step off that kind of hamster wheel to notice it. So you've helped me kind of work smarter and not harder. And I wanted to invite you on today to really talk about your top productivity hacks for busy working mums. So if you could share some kind of highlights with us, where would you start?
Okay, well, firstly, I would say that, we have so much as working mums that we need to think about. And, I don't know about you, but especially at the moment for me, different children are wearing different PE kits to school on different days, and drop off and pick up times have changed and they're staggered. And it just feels like there's so much for us to think about at the moment. But being busy doesn't need to be a badge of honour, and we don't have to feel overwhelmed. There's so many ways that we can change this for ourselves. There's hacks we can do for ourselves. There's apps to work smarter. And, that's going to be our secret weapon to actually feeling as though, we're just less overwhelmed and feeling that there's more balance and peace in our lives. So my top hacks that would, have a really quick win to start with would be to have a morning routine. So every morning, start your day, get a coffee, get to your desk, and create a must, might, maybe list. So, write down the things that you must do, the things that you probably should do, so they might get done, and the maybe things, the things that you'd quite like to do. And then that's your list to check in throughout the course of the day. And at the end of the day, everything that must be done should be done. And then, if the things on the might and the maybe section haven't been done, then that doesn't matter. They can just get done tomorrow when potentially they become a must. But, you've won. You've done what you needed to, which was the things in the first column. So that would be my first one, because, our to-do list is huge.
Absolutely. And I think more than ever, it's not that we've got limited time, but I think now more than ever, we've got the limited emotional energy. So even if we were before children the type of woman that could just cut through the to-do list no matter how big it was, I think that strategy doesn't work once you become a mum, because we have limited time, but more so we have the limited emotional energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that. So it's the must, might, and the maybe.
Yeah. And I just think that also, that helps. I think that if you've got a huge list of 15 things that you need to get done, you're never going to get those all done in one day. So you're going to end the day feeling like a failure because you haven't achieved everything that you inverted commas, should have achieved. But by doing this and actually being very strategic about what really has to be done, then you're not failing. So, I think there's a bit of a mindset kind of element to that. So that's number one.
Can I just ask a question around that? Because I think that piece that you've just said is so critical, Laura, around being really strategic on what actually is a must. How do you determine what's a must for you? And the reason I say this is when I know that I'm overwhelmed, I can become quite rigid in that everything's a must and, oh my God, it just all feels like it's got to be done and it's got to be done now. So how do you kind of get discerning around your must list?
That's such a good question. So for me, it is the things that are it's just non-negotiables. So it's time. It's basically, I guess, the time factor. So if they've just got to be done, there's a project that's got to be done, there's a bill that needs to be paid, there's, a happy birthday message that needs to be sent. It's those things that cannot be put off until tomorrow. So I really break it down to that, that real base level of the most important things that have to be done. And, sometimes there'll only be 2 things on my must list, and sometimes there'll be 5 or 6 things, and those are the ones that I focus on. And if I have a day where things don't go as planned, and we all have those days where something takes longer than it should, or something interrupts your day, then at least at the end of the day I know that those are the things that I've done. And like I say, it's just a way of sort of protecting that mindset and feeling that you're not, it's not it's not all going wrong. You've actually achieved the things that you have to do. So yeah, mine is around time. I mean, probably people have different deciding factors, but yeah, that's how I do it.
And I think one of the things that you've taught me and shown me, which you may not be aware of because we've not talked about this, Laura, is that I think that you've helped me get clarity on what my best leverage is.
Okay.
And in terms of, I can do it all, but actually, am I the best person to do it all? So, and I think what you've helped me get clear on is where's my passion? So what do I get the most enjoyment from doing? And actually, what am I most proficient at in my business? Because I can do it all. So I could do all my bookkeeping. But actually bookkeeping is in my drudgery zone. It takes me energy. It's not my best use of my skills. And actually I tend to procrastinate over more that. And then it becomes more overwhelming and then it drains my energy. So I think you've helped me get really clear on what my passion and proficiency is, I suppose, and get strategies around actually if something's on my list that's not in that zone, what choices do I have about what I do with that? And I know we'll probably come on to some of those strategies in a bit.
Oh, thank you. And I think it's really important that you're saying that, because I think that, when you're a business owner, I think we should all try and stay in our zone of genius as much as we can, because by doing that, then you're going to serve your clients a lot better. You're going to keep your, you're going to be happier, and you're actually not going to be wasting, like you said, your bookkeeping. Mine is exactly the same. That's something I outsource because, like you say, I could do it. I hate it. I loathe it. So it's something that I've just removed from my life so that I don't have to worry about that. And the time that I would be doing that, I'm now focusing on, either serving my clients or growing my business. So I think that's a really important thing.
Okay, great. So we've done the must.
So that's my first one. And then the second one is close your notifications. That is the number one way that when you're working, and we all do it, there's a WhatsApp group and you keep hearing it ping and you wonder what it is, or you've seen that somebody's liked your photo on Instagram, and that is one way that you can very, very easily stop yourself being distracted and work smarter. There's actually an app which is really good called the Forest app, which I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have.
It's really good.
Build trees by yes,
but it's really good, and you can you set it so that you're not going to be using your phone, and then so a little tree will grow during that time, and then if you check your phone, the tree dies in the forest. So obviously the point of it is you can have a lovely lush green forest. So that's a quite a good one. But closing your notifications, and then just having set times when you say to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to spend 10 minutes looking at Instagram, or I'm going to catch up on my WhatsApp messages. And I guess it's creating intentional time rather than allowing it to invade your headspace.
Love that. And I might try that up. I've not tried that one. I've tried some others. But I think the psychology of growing a tree and knowing that actually if I do this, I'm going to kill my tree. Yeah, that's really powerful. So I'm going to try that one. So love that. So number 2 is the notifications.
Yeah. And then my last one is to have a clear end of day, because I don't know how many of your listeners are working at home. I'd imagine at the moment with, the lack of commute, it's probably many of them. So by having a clear end of day cutoff time, it stops you just working and working and working, because it's so easy, right? There's so much to do. There's another email to look at, or there's an article that you wanted to read, or you could just do a little bit more on that project. And there's actually a law called Parkinson's law, which is that your work expands to fill the time available. So by saying to yourself, right, the computer is going off at 5:30, you will at 5:10, you will work a little bit quicker, because in 20 minutes that you'll be turning the computer off. Whereas if you hadn't set yourself that time, you might have done the same amount of work and finished at 6 or 5:30. So being kind of rigid in that respect, actually, it sounds almost counterintuitive, but it really does work.
And it's interesting, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was a woman that's got a kind of 7-figure business, multi-million pound business. I think she got 5 kids, and she works 3 hours a day, and she caveated it with she's now built a team around her, but she was doing actually quite few hours, relatively speaking, kind of even when her business was in its infancy. And she very much had that approach, was actually if I worked 8 hours, I could absolutely fill that time. But it made her focus on what are the few things that I can do with the greatest impact.
Yes,
and
exactly.
She's grown this successful business doing that.
Yeah. And I think there's an element of simplifying as well. So, are you doing something, along those lines? Are you doing something daily, weekly, monthly because you've always done it? Does it have an impact on your business, or is it just something that's out of habit? And actually looking at some of the things that you do and thinking, actually this doesn't have any impact on my clients. It has no impact on my profits, and you ditch it. So or you delegate it. So I think there's an area of that as well around the same kind of thing.
And the other piece, so you talked there about simplifying, delegating, or ditching. And I think the other piece that I would say has made the biggest impact for me, which was an area that I was totally overlooking till I started working with you, was around automating. So that you've got me automating template emails. Yeah. So things that there would be emails that I would send out regularly, whether it be to podcast guests, whether it be to new client inquiries. And I was recreating those emails each time, or I'd go back and find the email that I'd sent before and recreate it. And you were like, just create a template. And I didn't even know that I could do that in my email system. And this is where, when I say, you get stuck on the treadmill,
absolutely,
you just have to pause.
Yeah.
So what hacks could you give us around automation? What are the kind of things you've automated in your life?
So the first one, as you said, canned emails. That's the quickest way of creating an impact. So if you use Gmail, you can very easily set up canned email templates. So for those, it would be any email that I would say you send maybe more than twice a month. So onboarding emails, or I don't know, chasing payment, or like you say, welcoming podcast guests, or sending FAQs. So anything like that you can then easily just find the template and then just top and tail it, and adjust anything you need to. So I would suggest automating that. You can also set up FAQs. So if you have clients and you consistently get asked the same questions, or your podcast guests, if they're getting asked the same questions, just create a Google sheet, and then that way you can just direct people to that. Automating your calendar, that's another really, really powerful way of just cutting stuff out of your day. So if somebody wants to book a call with you, just send them your calendar link. So rather than that constant going backwards and forwards, they can just find a time suitable for them. And you can actually, so with things like Calendly, you can actually set the times that you want for those calls. So it's all, you have the power. So you say when that person is able to book the calls, and then they just find the time that works for them. So that would be some really easy ways just to add a bit of automation into your life.
And I love that, because I know there's going to be people listening that may run their own business, but also there might be people listening that are kind of employed corporate role. And actually that Calendly, kind of online calendar, there's loads of different tools out there, but a lot of them have a free kind of subscription where you get, I think it's one type of calendar booking. And even if you're employed in a corporate role, and it might be that actually you're trying to set up dinner with your girlfriend. Yes,
exactly.
Or you could use it for that. It doesn't have to be, and you could use the free subscription for that. And I know that sounds really, it feels like it's an unhuman way of doing something that should be very human. But seriously, I've literally only recently moved over to a online scheduling system, but it has revolutionised my time and my inbox, the amount of emails that were going backwards and forwards. So, and that could be that you're saving yourself some WhatsApp, like, look,
exactly.
Here you go, girls. This is my diary.
And you know what? There's another one. Sorry, there's another one called Doodle, which is really good as well. Which you don't, and that's just you basically set. So it's kind of like a voting. So, like you say, dinner with your girlfriends. You would create a doodle, and you would say, I don't know, Monday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, and then everybody would vote for the ones they can and can't do. So that's another one that's really, really good. And I use that, like you say, in personal life as well as in work life.
Brilliant. So if somebody's listening to this thinking, this sounds great, Laura, and I'm kind of already starting to see some areas that I could make a difference, but I'm already feeling overwhelmed. Kind of, where do I start? What would your top tip be for getting started? Is there a kind of easy win where you would point somebody towards?
I think my biggest tip to see the quickest impact would be to change how you use your inbox, and don't be in it all day. So I have really set times where I reply to emails. So I go in the morning, first thing, I then go in at lunchtime, and then I go in about 4 o'clock. So I only go into my inbox 3 times a day, and the rest of the time it's not open. I've got no idea what's coming in. And then that way, you're just not becoming a slave to it. And emails don't require, unless they're really urgent, they don't require an immediate response. And I think so many of us, if you've got it open, you see an email come in, you know that you could reply to it quickly, so you do, but that takes you away from the focused task that you were doing previously. So if you're worried about kind of clients and how it will look if you're not coming back quickly, one thing that I do and I recommend to clients, and I know that we've talked about this, is have an autoresponder. So you just have an auto message that just pings back and it says, I only come into this a couple of times a day. If it's urgent, this is how you can contact me. And then, this is also a great way, if you are a business owner, that you could say, do you want to book a call? You could give them the link to book a call, or if you've got freebies, you could say, do you want to capture this freebie or a sales page? This, you could use that as a bit of a promo space as well. But that's a good way of just people, you can just come back to somebody so they know that the message has been received, but they're not going to be getting an instant reply.
And I love your autoresponder. I'll put your contact details obviously in the show notes at the end, but I would recommend, if anybody wants to see an autoresponder brilliantly, send an email to Laura. You'll
thank you. So I would say the autoresponder, setting intentional blocks of time, and another one which we all, I think, are quite bad at, is only touch your emails once if you can. So if you look at an email and it's a receipt for something, just file it straight into your receipts folder, because it can be so easy to just leave those, and then you have to go back in, and then you have to look at it again. So there's that kind of one touch is another thing that is really helpful as well, because just move it. There's some junk mail in your inbox, archive it. Don't look at it twice. Just keeping on top of it that way can really help too. So I think letting you being in charge of your inbox rather than your inbox being in charge of you, I think is a really good place to start.
Love that. And just out of interest, because and it's probably moving on to the next question actually, I love the behind the scenes in other people's lives. I always kind of think, how do they do it? And maybe it's just because I'm a little bit nosy, but I'd like to reframe that as I'm curious and I'm interested. I'd like to know a little bit about how you run your life and business. So when you say you go into your email 3 times a day, how long are you spending on your email at those 3 points?
Well, obviously it can vary depending on what's coming in. But what I do notice is that if I haven't had days where I've had lots of meetings and, I've been able to do it 3 times in a day, the day before, you're going in a lot less because you haven't got this huge backlog. So probably about 30 minutes to an hour, depending. So, sometimes it'll be 45 minutes and other times it could just be 20. So it really just depends on what's coming in that day.
Are you a inbox zero type of girl?
I am, but yeah, I am. And then if they're left in there, been left in there for a reason. So it's just a reminder, or I'm not able to respond yet, or, that kind of thing. So I think my email's probably got about, when I looked this morning, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 in there, so not very many.
I love that. So you're living and breathing this, and that's my inspiration. I'm getting there. I'm definitely getting there.
Oh, I have a heart attack. I'm the opposite way. My friend sent me a screenshot the other day of her phone, and it said like 1,432 messages or something. I was thinking, God, I don't think I could sleep.
I used to be like that, and it's an unclosed loop that just gnaws away at you all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I remember when I came back after maternity leave with my second, I my I've got two different businesses, so I've got two inboxes that I kind of run simultaneously, and the one inbox was it got thousands in, and it wasn't a nice situation to be in. But what else do you do in your life? I'm interested in perhaps your home life. What do you automate or simplify when it comes to being a working mum?
So like I said earlier, I've automated a lot within my business. So same as you, if somebody books a call with me, they will get, a welcome email from me. They'll get the scheduler, and then they'll get the confirmation and the reminder without me doing anything. So that has saved me so much time. And that's using some software called Dubsado. I've outsourced things that I don't like or take too long. So my accounts and the techie stuff within my business, I've learned exactly like you. I've learned that although I can do it, I don't really enjoy it, and it takes me ages. So I've started outsourcing that. And then in my home life, I use something. I don't know if you've heard of it. So I've got a cleaner. It took me a while to actually get a cleaner, because I kind of felt, because I worked from home, for some reason I felt like I shouldn't have one. So
totally get
it's
that,
weird, isn't it? It's really strange. But I got one about a year ago, and I was so relieved when I did. But within the week, I used something called Team Tom. So I don't know if you've seen that. It's called the Organised Mum Method, and it's really good. So basically, it's so on a Monday you do this room, on a Tuesday you do this room, on a Wednesday you do this room, and she's got an app so you can just check off the things you do. So that kind of helps me keep on top of it between the times when the cleaner's here. Yes, that's really good. And then online shopping. So I do all my supermarket shopping online. And I've also found as well that going to the gym once a day, or just going for a walk once a day, really sets me up as well. So having that kind of space, and I do a lot of thinking as well, and kind of planning my day. So, if I go for a morning walk before I start my day off, I feel that really puts me in the right headspace for work. So that's quite important to me as well.
Brilliant. And again, this is the kind of curious part of me. So how does your day work then? Because obviously you've got two children who are now back at school, but obviously for the last 6 months haven't been at school. So how does your morning work? Because you've talked about a morning routine. How does that actually work for you? Do you get up before the kids, or does it start after the kids have gone to school?
Yeah, so I've created a perfect week, which I try to stick to. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's kind of the blueprint for how I'd like my week to be. So again, if you write down your goals and you write down how you want something to be, it's more likely to happen. So I try not to do any work before the children go to school. So I might check my emails sneakily on my phone, but I basically do kind of tidying the house, getting the breakfast stuff ready, take them to school, and then I will either go to the gym or go for a walk, and then start my day at about 10. So then I come down and start working. And then if I've got a particularly busy week, I'll use time blocking. So I'll really block my time out to make sure that I stay on track to achieve what I need to do. And then I sort of finish it between 3 and 4:30 when I look after the children. And then at about 4:30, I just come back to work just to close the day off. So I'll check my emails, I'll make sure that I've finished everything I needed to do, and turn the computer off. So obviously every day doesn't work like that, but that's 90% of the time. That's how I make it work.
Fantastic. And it's interesting, because I've not heard you talk about your perfect week before. I do an exercise with my clients called the Ideal Week, and it's very much the same. And it actually stems from when I had my own executive coach when I was in my corporate career, probably about 17 years ago. And it was an exercise she did with me. And when she set up the exercise, I was like, it was a visualization. And I was like, I know I'm not into this kind of thing. And it was so powerful. And actually within 18 months, I transformed my life to be my ideal week. And when I did it, it felt a million miles away from the life that I was living at the time. And I was just like, that's just some aspirational woo-woo stuff. There's no way that can happen. And it did. And I was like, this is my ideal week.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think it really is. I think it's the fact that, by writing it down, you're sort of making that first step to making it real. It's that kind of act as if, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the piece that we talked about earlier is sometimes when you're so overwhelmed in the what is now, it's really difficult to see past that, and just lifting your head to think, well, if I had a clean sheet of paper, what would it look like?
Yeah, absolutely.
What would it feel like? What would it be like? Actually, there's little changes that you can make.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I feel really strongly about that. I completely agree.
Fantastic. So if there's just one thing that you hope a working mum who's listening to this takes away, what would you want that to be?
I think it's just that you don't need to feel, there are days when you're going to feel overwhelmed, obviously, of course, but you don't need to feel like that every day. There are apps and there are strategies and there are little tweaks that you can make to the way that you're working to just make things a little bit easier on yourself. And I've created a little freebie, which has included some, which I think you'll share the link to. But there's a few little things that you can do that would just take the pressure off and help you skip the overwhelm a little bit.
Absolutely. And if people want to access that, if you just go to www.wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk/41, you can access that download. And I think it's great that you've put that together, because it's a really great reminder, Laura, just of some of the things that we can do. And I love it because what you've put together is so simple but powerful. So I know that will help people. And I think it's great that you're saying that you don't have to be overwhelmed, because I think there's almost this cultural piece around, actually, we talked about business as a badge of honor, that actually it's almost that martyrdom of
exactly.
We're doing well if we're kind of at the end of the day kind of laid across the desk going,
yes,
oh my God,
exactly.
I've worked hard.
Absolutely.
And as you say, it doesn't have to be like that.
And I think there's that element of sometimes, if you've got everything done by, an hour earlier than you usually do, I think there's that sort of temptation to just keep going. But actually, if you've had a really good day, embrace it. Go for a walk, go for a coffee, reward yourself.
And culturally, again, I don't think as women we're really good at that. We'll try and slot some more work in, go and do something else that needs to be done. Exactly. And I love that you're celebrating the fact that actually true success comes from having that freedom to do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So how can people find out more about you and your work, Laura?
Okay, so my favourite social media platform where you'll find me hanging out is Instagram. So you can come over and say hi, and maybe drop me a DM. Let me know that you've listened to this podcast. That would be fab. So it's at Shoreway Business. And if you want to take a look at my website, it's www.shorewaybusiness.co.uk.
And I'll put all the links in the show notes. So if you, as I say, head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk/41, you'll find all the links. And I'll put all the links to the apps that you've mentioned and all that in the show notes. So if people are going, oh, what was that thing that she mentioned? You'll find those in the show notes. So Laura, thank you for joining me and sharing some of those insights today.
Thank you for having me, Nikki. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
And thank you for everything that you're doing to help revolutionise the way I work as well. I'm really grateful.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Laura as much as I enjoyed interviewing her. I think we all need a Laura in our life, someone that inspires us to do the simple but often powerful things that can save us time and energy in our life and work. Don't forget to head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk/4 to download her productivity freebie. Until next time, thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode of Wisdom for Working Mums, please share it on social media and with your friends and family. I'd love to connect with you too. So if you head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk, you'll find a link on how to do this. And if you love the show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review and subscribe. You'll be helping another working mum find this resource too. Thanks so much for listening.